Throw your arms around me. Sunday, March 30, 2014, 8:05 p.m. It's evening and the sun has gone down in King's Park. Justine feels the chill of the whispering breeze and pulls her scarf over her shoulders. We're on the green. I couldn't get better tickets. Waiting during an intermission. We've just heard one of the warm-up bands, Something for Kate. The Hunters and Collectors are coming on next. We're sitting on Frank's blue-checkered picnic rug, the same one he's had since forever, and the same one you can find probably at all of his houses. I can still see the hole I burnt in the corner at the Carols by Candlelight in 1992. I've packed a picnic basket with roast chicken, a selection of cold meats, a green salad of broccolini, snow peas, asparagus and beans, sautéed in butter with salt and cracked pepper, and a potato salad, Barbavera's Rusca Salata. They said no glass and no alcohol, so I brought along sparkling apple juice in a flask. Neither of us could be bothered queuing to buy wine or beer. We're quite happy just sitting here, enjoying the atmosphere, sipping apple juice from plexiglass flutes. I'm thinking of my last conversation with Frank before I left. I stopped him as he was heading towards bed. I never did ask you, Frank. What does music sound like when it's reflected? Does it have a mirror image, just like light? Light is an electromagnetic wave. Sound is a pressure wave. But the mechanics are more or less the same. Waves are waves. They go up and down. They get reflected. So, yes, every wave has a mirror image. How does the mirror image differ from the original? It doesn't really, not in any way that matters. Think of a standard sine wave. The mirror image is just the exact opposite. The ups and downs are flipped. Another way to think of it is to move the signal along a bit. So you can't really tell when the sound is mirrored? Not really, not on its own. You only notice a difference when you compare the two signals side by side. Like when you look in the mirror after you've been reprinted. But don't be thinking one is correct and the other one isn't. Neither is more original or authentic. I mean, would you think a wave in the sea was no longer the same wave just because it had been reflected off a coastline? No, I suppose not. I thought for a while and then asked, okay, so what happens when you put a wave and its mirror image together? Sound provides a good example. Consider a single tone. If you match it with its exact mirror image, the two sine waves are 180 degrees out of phase. They cancel each other out. The result is silence. That is the principle on which noise-cancelling headphones work. Ah, of course, I should have realized. In fact, I'm starting to think that all matter is made up of waves, vibrations from tiny strings. Put the opposing phases of these vibrations together, and they cancel each other out. I think that's broadly what happens when you use the record and null function. You'd probably be surprised to hear it, but I don't know exactly how the printers work. I stumbled upon most of my discoveries inadvertently. So you might say that what I've created is more attributable to intelligent accident than intelligent design. I'm thinking all this when Justine strokes my face and says, your bruising is almost completely gone, you know that. Luckily nothing was broken, and as Ian discovered, I'm also a nifty healer. She answers this by kissing me on the nose and then asks, so what are you going to do with your time now? Get back into music? Nah, I'm too old for that. Justine hits me playfully as I say this. Oi, we're about the same age, so watch it. I laugh in response. Seriously, I want to write. I'm thinking I might turn my diary from the last few months into a book. You'll have to edit it a bit. Indeed, and I was hoping you could help with that. In fact, I wouldn't mind if you contributed. You know, wrote a chapter or two. Me? Why me? You're the writer. Yes, but there are gaps in my account. I was dead for a while, remember? And besides, I think I need a different perspective. I suspect mine can't be trusted entirely. Ho, you sure got that right, guffawed Justine. Okay, buddy, I accept. But I've got conditions. And they are? I'm not writing in that crazy tense. First person present. Whatever, who does that? Obviously I do. Well, I won't. Justine's lip is curling up at the corner. Okay, I chuckle. What else? I don't do dates and times. It's way too linear for me. No problem. Write whatever you want, and however you want to write it, I'll slot it in. Okay, last but not least. It's going to be warts and all, okay? I wouldn't have it any other way. Just at that moment we hear, "Hello there, mate." I look up, and it's my old neighbour, Jim from New Zealand. He's with his missus, who I've never seen before. She actually looks quite sweet. "Susie, this is my former neighbour, Dan. He used to live next door to us. You never met him. Susie works odd hours as a nurse." "Hi there, Susie," I say, waving. She waves in reply, her face crinkling up in a smile. She seems shy. I wonder how to introduce Justine when she extends her hand and says, "Hi, I'm Clea." "Hello," says Susie. Jim turns to me and says, "Gosh, Dan, I didn't know you were still around. Somebody told me you died. They said it was on the news and everything. But I don't watch television or the internet. As you can see, reports of my death seem to have been greatly exaggerated. Either that, or I'm actually a ghost." Jim and Susie laugh at this. Jim adds, "I remember you used to play your Hunters and Collectors songs. That's how I heard of them. So when I saw the concert tickets, I said to Susie, 'Come on, babe, should be choice.' So here we are." "Yeah, can't miss out, eh? Probably the last time we'll have the chance to see them. That's why I've come back, just this once." "So I take it you haven't been in touch with Kylie and Brad?" "Nah, mate, I'm no longer a part of this world," I say, waving around me. "Ah, thought so. Tell you what, I feel sorry for that Brad fellow. Poor bastard had to sell his house to meet Kylie's mortgage repayments. He's now living with Kylie full-time, of course." "So I hear. Serves him right. Yup, he's duckhead. But I feel sorry for him nevertheless. It seems he's still suffering from his operation. He gets around on what he calls a scooter, but it looks like one of those things old people drive on footpaths. I think it's even called I Can't Believe It's Not a Gopher. Lately he's been trying to get me to join his men's group, but I can't think of a worse idea. From what he says, most of what they do at this men's group is whinge about their wives. Sad, really. Looks like a club for men with no friends." "I think you're right. Anyway, we've got to find a place to put our things. Nice seeing you." "Nice seeing you, Jim. Enjoy the concert and be well." Justine waves with me. Justine turns to me and says, "Does it bother you that I have no friends?" "You mean aside from Zar, Silvio, Amar, Frank and me?" "You know what I mean. Girlfriends." "Does it bother you that I don't have girlfriends?" Justine hits me again. "Okay, let me put it another way," I say, laughing. "Doesn't bother you that I don't have male friends other than Frank, Zar and Silvio?" "No. I suppose we're both misfits then." "Great, we can be misfits together, my dear Clea. Now, what made you give Jim that name?" "I could hardly say Justine, now could I? Imagine if that had gotten back to Brad and Kylie. They'd know that Jim wasn't mistaken or seeing a ghost. So I chose one of the other names from the Alexandria Quartet." That reminds me. Frank says we'll need new identities in Brazil. He said we could choose any names we wanted. What do you reckon?" "Well, I guess I could be Clea Durrell. How does that sound?" "Sounds good. I'll be Lawrence Mount Olive." "Perfect. Looks like Dad got his quartet after all." "And now we have our very own." "Being?" "You, me, Frank, and Bugsy, of course." "Speaking of Bugsy, whatever happened to him? Didn't Frank already have his own copy?" "Frank erased his version so I could bring mine to Rio." "Shared memories that need to be preserved, eh?" I just smile and pull her into my arms, and she lies her head onto my chest. I can see the roadies are setting up for the hunters. Abruptly, Justine pulls away and looks at me. "Hey, you said you had some big news." "I thought you'd forgotten." "Go on, spill the beans." "I don't know, it's pretty big and the concert's about to start." "I'm going to have to hit you again if you keep me in suspense." I laugh and hold my arms up in defense. Okay. Remember how you said I looked a lot like Frank that day in the bedroom? The day I was fired? When you still thought Frank was Carl? Sure, so what? And remember when I told you how Mrs. Chu kept saying that I looked like Mr. Picklejig, only older? Uh-huh. Then there's the fact that Frank and I both share the same heart defect, and we have the same interests and passions. I'm even prone to Frank's mannerisms. And on the flip side of the coin, I only look a little bit like Dad, and nothing at all like Mum. Starting to see a picture? You're not telling me. That's exactly what I'm telling you. But how can it be? Way back when the whole family was in Tannup, young Frank had a girlfriend. Sophia was her name. She was from the Milano family. They ran a property down the road. Sophia became pregnant with me. Frank was the father, obviously. They were both only 15. It was a scandal, of course, particularly for the very Catholic Milanos. So the two sides got together and arranged for it all to be sorted out. Sophia gave birth in secret. Somehow the families convinced a rather young Dr. Singh to change the birth papers. I was taken in by Mum and Dad, who were actually my uncle and aunt, although I was pretty much raised by Dada and Baba in the early years. And Frank was always around. He stayed in my life the whole time. He paid for my schooling and he spent all his free time with me. He was a proper dad. What happened to Sophia? She was made to go away for a while, up to Northam. Sadly, Frank says she developed a rare form of cancer at the age of 17 and died a year later. That is a hell of a story. It explains a lot too. For example, why I never got my parents, in particular Mum, and why they never got me. It also explains why you like Italian food so much. Probably, I laugh. So why didn't Frank tell you sooner? It was a promise he made to his brother and sister-in-law. He wanted to tell me when I reprinted him, after he died at the barbecue. But at that time I was still part of Dad's and Mum's world, not to mention Kylie's. He was waiting for me to change myself and the way I lived, and now I have. I'm so happy for you, Dan. I can't tell you how happy I am about being with Frank again. At last. Of course, his house in Rio is really a mansion. We have our own separate apartment, and Frank is always busy doing his stuff. But we'll get together for dinner all the time. Wait till you see the place. You'll love it. So what do you call him now? Frank, of course. Dad sometimes, especially if I want to annoy him. Justine smiles at this. Is he still calling you nephew? No, he mostly calls me Dan, but he started calling me son. And I have to say, I quite like that. Justine thinks for a bit and asks, Say, do you think we'll be able to visit my Ama? Why not? Frank has a pad in San Francisco. We can visit her as often as you want. I'd love to meet her. Let's make the most of the time we have left, eh? I'd like that. In fact, Frank also has an apartment in New York, so I thought we might take a trip there to visit the boys. Justine smiles, says nothing, and settles back into my arms, hugging me tightly around the chest. The few misty driplets sprinkling down don't even bother us. Let it pour. Perth needs the rain. Besides, the music is about to start. I know every song off by heart, and I'm going to sing myself hoarse, but never more than during their signature song, the one they always play near the end, Throw Your Arms Around Me. There can be no more fitting an ending to a hunters and collectors concert, or a story like this, because the best thing in life is being in the arms of someone you love, and having your arms around someone who loves you. In the end, nothing else matters, really.